Hi guys, welcome to Actualol. Today I'm continuing going through my entire board game collection. There's a first video if you want to check that out. This is all part of a Patreon goal that I reached. So let's get on with the second bookcase. Dice Forge, I've done a full review of this. Interesting game where you are building dice. You're clipping new faces onto these Lego dice. Immediate family game, and the production is incredible. Love that one, keeping it. Yinch, this is the most recent game that I've got. I haven't played it yet, but I feel like I would like it. It's an abstract two-player game, and I was just kind of trying it out to see whether it would be a good couples game for us. Dungeon Fighter, really love this cooperative dexterity game. I've got a few expansions in here as well. The box is kind of squeezing out. You are rolling dice into the center to try and kill off these monsters, but generally you're having to do it in some weird way, blow it off your hand, do it with your eyes closed, spin around before you do it. I love those silly challenges that the game brings you, and it is pretty hard, but because you're playing it together, I think it's great, and definitely keeping that one for a long time. Chaos Moss, I think, is probably on the chopping block. Only played it a few times. I got it because it was different. It's a space theme, but really you're hiding this egg, and it's going around people's hands or being placed on these planets, being hit, and you can sort of hide something away across the galaxy, and people don't know whether it's in your hand or not. It's really interesting and different. I'm just not sure if it fully worked for me in practice. I wish it had a different theme. Dice Town. This is a gateway game. You're rolling dice, and you are trying to create sets with them, and you're having to pay to get to roll them again and things like that, which I like. It doesn't massively fit its theme. I just think it's quite a... the way the game works is just a lot of fun, but I haven't played it loads, so I can't say for sure I keep this one forever, but I've got the expansion for it as well that I haven't played. Beasts of Balance, I talked about my top 10 Christmas gifts. It's such an interesting, different cooperative dexterity game with an app. Amazing pieces, looks incredible on the table, and I'm really looking forward to the expansion for this that makes it a competitive game, because this one is quite light, it's exploratory, but I think when the expansion comes out, it's gonna make it more interesting. So that's one of the reasons I'm keeping it. MS Battery, talked about in my top 20 games of last year. Love this, basically a Cluedo killer with a great 3D cardboard cruise ship. Great for families if you want a crime-solving game. Untold Adventures Away is a storytelling/RPG game that uses Rory story cubes. And when I first played this, I had an amazing time telling a story at UK Games Expo. Hasn't always gone brilliantly for me, but I'm really hoping to get that back again. And I've had some fun with this one. And yeah, I just want to try it more. Can't get the games out. Villa Paletti is a classic stacking dexterity game. You're building a tower together, and you're trying to get your coloured pieces to the top to get the most points. So there's some thought to it, but it still has this giant collapse. I talk about it in my dexterity games video. That's a fun one that I wasn't sure about keeping, but have since replayed and yeah, I'm keeping this one. Although there's a game been announced from Zoc, which looks like almost like an improved version, cooperative dexterity game. Merchants and Marauders is a big thematic pirate game. This is a long one. There's a few games in my collection that tell a really rich story, that they're thematically to the core, and this is one of them, and I love the pirate theme, and you can decide whether to be a trader or go around attacking navy ships, and it's great. The rules are intense, but I love it. Show Manager is a really under-the-radar gateway game. You're putting on musicals and collecting sets of actors, and I love that theme, but also just the mechanisms of it are really simple and effective and enjoyable, and the one thing that lets it down is some really ugly artwork, but I would highly recommend this game. Speculation from the same designer is a light stock market game that, again, I was a bit on the fence with, and then I tried it again recently and really enjoyed. You just got to buy and sell at the right times and speculate, and it just plays nicely. Camel Up is a betting game. There's these camels racing, and you've got to bet on which camel you think is gonna win and things like that. It's quite luck heavy, but it's a great family game, and there's a lot of everyone's kind of shouting at the camels. I talked about this in my top 10 Christmas games. Divinity Derby was in my top 20 games of last year. This is another racing betting game, a bit more advanced, with a really interesting way you play cards because you're sharing hands with the people to your left and right. Yeah, cool on that. Cinque Terre is a gateway pick up and deliver game where you are collecting resources from Italian villages and then delivering to other ones. And I haven't always liked that in games, but this one does it nicely. It's quite simple, almost Ticket to Ride level. Don't know if I'll keep it forever, but I think it's nice to have in my collection because it does something that none of my other games do. New York Slice was in my top 20 last year. Love this one. You're splitting up pizzas. You're trying to collect sets, but it's an I split you choose where you split it up, but everyone else gets to pick first. Real great thinkiness to it. Great production. Love that it comes in a pizza box. Absolute, great gateway game. I'll keep that one for a long time. Mask of Mawai was in my top 20 games of last year. This is a game that you play with a VR headset where you put your phone in and you're trying to communicate to your teammates cooperatively. It's just so different and interesting. Talking of that, Igloo Pop is a game where you shake these igloos and you're having to listen to how many little plastic pieces are inside them, and you're playing it at speed. I love that I've got a listening game in my collection. We played this one not so long ago. I wasn't sure if I keep it, and I was like, no, I'm keeping that. It was great fun. It's really short. Great for kids, but I'm not sure it's still available. Junta Viva el Presidente is similar to the game I talked about up there called Junta Las Cartas. This comes before that, and it's got dice in it, and it works quite differently, but in a sense it's similar theme and you're negotiating, but this one you're kind of attacking people secretly. I really enjoyed it last time I played it, but now that other smaller box one has come along, I don't know if it's maybe long for my collection. Say Anything is from North Star Games, Wits and Wagers. I love all their party games. This one's in my Cards Against Humanity video. It's quite a family-friendly game where you're answering things on whiteboards and then voting on what you think the player will pick. I don't know if I'll keep it forever, but I think it's great with families. Witness is such a unique game. It's a deduction game where you have these puzzles and then you're doing Chinese whispers. You're whispering the information you know into other players' ears, and they will have to pass it on to other players. It's kind of crazy. I don't know if I will keep this one forever, but it's so different. I feel like I've said that 100 times. The Martian Investigations, I feel bad that I haven't played this one. I got sent this by the designer, and it's basically Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, a mystery set on Mars. And that sounds great to me, so I need to play that one, and because I love those kind of crime-solving puzzles. 13 Days I talk about in my dating games video. 2-player game, a much shorter, simpler version of Twilight Struggle. It's set in the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's a great, thinky 2-player game that is super streamlined, and I really like that one. I don't play it very often, but I got a lot of love for it. Hot Shots is a cooperative game about putting out wildfires. It's got some nice thematic mechanisms. It's really ugly. The graphic design is horrible in this game. The artwork's all right. And you're rolling dice, a bit like Pandemic The Cure. So you're pushing your luck as to whether you succeed. And I've enjoyed this one. I don't know if I'll keep it forever. And a big part of that is because it's quite ugly. But it's a nice small box at least. And it does play nicely. Unlock, this is the second Unlock. I played the other one, loved it. It's a great escape room game. I slightly prefer Exit the Games, but these are still fun. And I haven't played any of these yet, so I don't know if they're any good or not. I Know is a cool trivia game. This is kind of a mass market game, but I've really enjoyed this. It gives you information about something. Maybe you're trying to guess a celebrity, and then you kind of get more information, and you have to decide when you're going to answer the question, when you think you know it. It's hard to describe, but it's still very much a kind of classic trivia game, but with a few modern twists to make it enjoyable for someone who doesn't want to play Trivial Pursuit. Whitehall Mystery. This is a retake on Letters from Whitechapel. It's a hidden movement game, and this is much simpler and shorter, but I don't know if I prefer it to Letters from Whitechapel yet. I've played it a couple of times, but it's still a really nice game in a smaller box. Between Two Cities is a tile drafting game where you're building cities to your left and your right with the other people. Quite different and interesting, and you can play it with a big group. I don't know if I love this one. I've definitely enjoyed it. I haven't played it in a long time, and I think the tiles are really ugly, but it's different. But is it... I don't know if I prefer it than other city building games like Capital or Quadropolis. Russian Bash, I think I've talked about in a video. This is like Mario Kart, the board game. You're laying traps and you're trying to shoot other people off the road, but it's not as luck heavy as you'd think it would be. Good family one and just a lot of fun. Garden Dice, I like as a 2-player game. You are planting seeds and then you're trying to water them efficiently, and you can kind of steal other people's plants and things like that. It's sort of a bit thematic and looks quite cute. I don't know if I'll keep it forever, that one. I haven't played it in a while. Catch the Moon is in my top 20 games of last year. Great dexterity game, looks amazing on the table. Lovely rules. Yeah, just great. I've talked about that a couple of times. Telestrations is one of my all-time favorite party games, and this has got the 12-player not expansion, but 12-player version in here. And I've also got some other party games I think I keep in here. So Duplicate, which I also talk about in my Pictionary video, as well as Telestrations. Another great drawing game where you're trying to explain a drawing to other people, so you're working cooperatively. Really cool one, Duplicate, but I just got rid of the box. Hive Mind is talked about in my couch games. You're trying to write the same answers as other people. You're trying to think like the hive mind. Box is way too big, but it's a great party game with any number of players. Great with families, great at Christmas. Love Hive Mind. Bootleggers is one of these rich thematic games that I like. I love negotiation games, and this one, you're in Prohibition era America. You're making whiskey and then you're selling it to bars, but you're stitching up other players and you're trading with them, and it's quite take-that-y in parts, but it's also just, it really comes alive with the right players. Only ever played this one once. It's long, and so I think I'm keeping it because I kind of know that the next time I play it, I'll enjoy it as well. But it's an older one, and there are better negotiation games for sure. Sixes is quite a lot like Hive Mind. Nice tiny box, great small party game. I've talked about this in a video. You're trying to list off basketball teams and write unique answers, or you're trying to list off words related to lights and match with other people. Yeah, great party game, great for Christmas. Another couch game, really. Time Bomb. I've never actually played this version, but I played someone else's. Is a simple hidden role, simpler than Resistance, simpler than and shorter than those games, and works really nicely. And I've got the kind of fancy yellow version, but without English rules. Shot and Totten is a 2-player game that's based on, well, it's basically Battle Line. It's Reiner Knizia. This is a classic, and this is a really nice version. I got rid of Battle Line, which was in my top 10 couples games, and you're basically trying to win spots with poker set hands. It's one that you need to play to really appreciate. Porthal of Malthar is a game that I haven't played, and it's in Shrink, and I got given this one at a convention by somebody, and I just haven't tried it yet. So I honestly know nothing about it, and I apologize. Onitama is one of my all-time favorite couples games. I talked about it in my dating games videos. It's an abstract game. It's like a simpler chess where you're trying to beat the other player, capture their pieces, but you can only move your pieces by using cards. And it's just such a great game. One of my favorites of all time. Council of Verona is a nice small filler card game with a bit of bluffing and a bit of deduction, a bit like Love Letter. I don't own Love Letter, I'm not a huge fan. I like this one. It's got nice cute artwork, but I wouldn't play it loads. Dead Drop is from the same company, same small box. These have those awesome magnetic clasps. And this one is a great deduction game for like 3 players. I didn't like it with 4 players, and I don't think it's great with 2 players. So I don't know if I'll keep that one forever. And same goes for Council of Verona, but they're small. These two games are from British designer Bez, and she makes interesting games in tiny boxes. In a Bind is a dexterity game where you're having to keep cards like all over your person, and got re-released as Yogi. And then Wibble Plus Plus is a word game, letter game, but it has more. It's like a game system, and it has multiple different word games within that like system. Verata and Mutera are two games that I've never played. I found out about these through Joel Eddy of Drive Through Reviews. He had them, I think, in his top 100. And they are kind of precursors to Citadels and other role selection games. And they cut them in such tiny boxes, and I just had to try them, and then I've since never tried them, and I've had them for a couple of years. So they've got some shame attached to them for sure. Brewcraft is a travel card game. This is one of my favorite travel card games because it's got a nice cute theme, brewing beer, but it's also just a bit thinky and different to other. You know, I talked about all those small box card games before, like Six Nimps and stuff, and a lot of them are quite similar. This one's quite different, some set collection and stuff. And I love the team version where you play 2 versus 2. Basari, the card game, found out about through Z Garcia. It's kind of a interesting action selection game. It's got a bunch of gems in, so the box never stays closed. I don't know if this one will stay around. I've only ever played it once. Gamsch Alpine is very similar to that sign game that I was telling you about, where you have the hidden communication. Again, only played this one once. I don't know enough about it, whether I like it or not. However, our Oko is a game that I really like. Very hard to describe. Great small box card game from Germany, and it's got a recycling theme. It's surprisingly intricate and thinky for such a tiny box. No Thanks. This has got one of these. This is from the Broken Token. It keeps these boxes together. No Thanks is a classic filler game. You should hopefully know this. You don't want to pick up cards. You have some chips that you're kind of putting onto a card to say, I don't want it. But then at some point, someone will take that card and all the chips with it. And it doesn't sound that great when you describe it, but it's just so simple and brilliant. And that's staying around forever in my collection. As is Brewcraft as a travel card game, by the way, and Sixes and Shot and Totten. Land Unter is also called, what's it called? It's something else in English. This is also very similar to Six Nimp, those kind of games, maybe a bit more involved. Really like it though. I don't know how I've got so many of them. It's numbers again, and you're trying to get rid of them at the right times. Skulking, this is quite a rarity in my collection. This is a trick-taking game, and I haven't covered a single trick-taking game yet. I like this one because I like the betting on how many hands you're going to win, and then there's just a few special cards that mix things up. This is a really cool one. If you haven't played this one, check it out. It's another cheap one, tiny box. Hanabi, this is a classic small box game. You play cooperatively. You're trying to... you can only give clues to other people. Your cards are facing away from you, so you don't know what cards you have, and you're trying to give clues to the other players about what cards they have, and you're trying to play them together, and there's communication, and it's just such a great simple game and such a tiny box that I'll keep that one probably forever. Sleuth, this is a really old game from Sid Saxon. It's a classic deduction game. It's pretty themeless, but it plays nicely. For an old game, it does the job, and I like this one, so yeah, I'll be keeping that one. One Night Ultimate Werewolf, this is a really popular social deduction game, plays in like 10 minutes. I sometimes find it a bit chaotic and hard to follow, but I've always had fun with it. I'm not saying it's my favourite social deduction game, but I like the variety that it offers, so yeah, definitely keeping that, and that's got the Daybreak expansion in as well. Fun Employed, this is the first review that I ever did, so this has got fond memories for me. This is a pitching or persuasion game where one person is looking to employ someone, everyone else is applying for that job, and they've got cards, silly cards that are helping them give reasons as to why they're qualified. I love this one. It's also very similar to Snake Oil, which I'll get to in a bit. Off Your Rucker is quite a under the radar game, party game that we've really enjoyed. It's a improv game, as far as I'm aware, almost a public domain game that was kickstarted ages ago, and I got this one on eBay. The idea of it is that everyone's got something wrong with them, something quirky, like everyone thinks they're a superhero. One person is out of the room and they don't know what it is that is the problem with everyone. They're the psychiatrist. They come back in and they're asking questions of everyone, and so everyone's answering the questions in character. It's just a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, and it's different as well, so really enjoy Off Your Rocker. Mr. Lister's Quiz Shootout. This is a great trivia game from Big Potato where everything is in a list. So, for example, this is the British version. You have to name the 12 different flavours of Walker's crisps. And you play in teams and you're kind of working together. I like that. It feels a bit like a pub quiz, and it's also very approachable. You can play this with anyone. It's not like really obscure trivia, so I like this for a trivia alternative. Memoir. I talked about this in a video. This is a memory game. I never really thought I liked memory games, but this one is fun, and surprisingly so, and it's got some special powers and interesting twists, but it's very simple. But yeah, I like it. And it's my only memory game as far as I know. Mafia de Cuba, I talked about this in my couch games list. This is another social deduction game, and what I like about this one is that you can choose which side you're on. The box gets passed around, it's got a bunch of diamonds and other things in, and you decide what you take out. Are you going to steal from the Godfather, or are you going to be on his side? And then the Godfather at the end has to ask questions and try and work out who stole from him. Nice theme to that, and yeah, just enjoy the twist that it offers. I played this one last night. This is a great party game from a couple of years ago at Essen. It's a guessing game, but the idea is that you're trying to get as few people as possible to guess as you can. So it's a bit like Dixit, but a guessing game. I've done a video on this. I just like the twist on the dynamic. It makes it very different, but you're just getting people to guess like celebrities and film titles. This one's hidden around the back. This is Ghost Blitz. I don't play this one as much as I used to. It's a speed reaction game. Cards get flipped and you have to work out from the card which wooden piece in the middle needs to be grabbed. It's very cute, and it's quite a good entry-level game for people. I just find that when you play it, there's always some people that are way better than other people, and that can make it a bit frustrating. But it's still a really cool game. And then in the back there, I've got a very small game called Randomize. I can't quite reach it. Oh, maybe I can. Randomize. I've only ever played this once. This is a very simple, basic party game. But I believe you can. It's kind of like charades, and then also there's a drawing aspect. And it's a tiny box. I need to play it again and decide if it's for me. Skull. This is a classic bluffing game. It would be great to play in a pub. It's got really nice components, and it's so simple, and yet I have had a bit of trouble, not so much teaching the rules, but people understanding how to get it. You need to play 2 or 3 rounds of this to get into it, but still a great game if you're playing with the same group a lot. Really nice bluffing game. Targets, I talked about in my dexterity video. This is a very simple flicking game. You're flicking dice onto these cardboard targets to try and win them, and then you can also rob them off other people. I mostly kept this because it's a nice small dexterity game. Right, more small games. This is one of my favorites. This is Fugitive from Tim Flowers. I talked about this in my Couples That Play Together video. It's a great 2-player deduction game where one person's the fugitive, the other person's the marshal trying to catch them. Really clever, so innovative. Anomia, this is a great party game. Another kind of speed reaction game where you're flipping over cards, and if you match symbols with someone else, you both have to shout something out, what's written on their card, and they have to shout what's written on your card. So it might be you have to name a type of cereal, you might have to name a female actor or whatever. You just shout out lots of random things and you get so frustrated. It's a very loud game, but I really like that one. That's a great game that I'd recommend to almost anyone. Fault Wars, I feel, doesn't get the love that it deserves. I talked about this a long time ago in a video. It's an auction game with a bunch of twists, but it's basically Storage Wars, the TV show, where people are bidding on lots of random stuff, and they don't know what they're getting. This has a fantasy theme, which I'm not super fond of, but I like the idea that you can see some of what you're bidding on and not others, and it has, it supplies... It's surprisingly rich for such a small box, and it comes in... These are like my favorite box sizes, these boxes that have magnetic class. And this packs a lot into it. Masquerade, this is a party game from Bruijne Duty. It's been a while since I played this one. When I had it first, got it, I really loved it. I'm not sure it's still for me. It's quite chaotic, as a lot of his games are. You are moving, you've all got roles and they get moved around and you're saying, oh, I'm the queen or I'm this. And you don't even necessarily know what your card is sometimes. And it's very hard to keep track of, and you're swapping around other people's roles. It's definitely fun. I just don't know how much replayability for me. Don't Mess with Cthulhu. This is the identical game to Time Bomb, which I talked about before. This is a very simple social deduction game. I've actually never played this version, but I understand it has a few more intricacies than just base Time Bomb, and so that's why I wanted to try it out. But I really resent any theme with Cthulhu. It's just not for me, so I would prefer to just play Time Bomb. Coup Reformation. I actually got rid of Coup. It's a classic bluffing game. It's very famous. I'm sure you all know of it. And this is the expansion that I got on Kickstarter that allows you to play in teams. I've never played it, and I'm keeping it. It actually has enough cards to basically play the base game. I just need to try it once. I'm not sure I'll be keeping it forever, but yeah, I need to try it. Dead Man's Draw. This is a simple push your luck game where you're flipping over cards and you're trying not to go bust. And then it's got some special abilities for each card and some other intricacies. It's fun. I found that it, as with push your luck games can be, it is pretty luck heavy, and I've seen people get absolutely loads of points and then another person get like 2. Yeah, so I don't know if I play it again and again, but yeah, I like it. Body Party, this is quite a weird one. This is actually designed by Eric Martin from Board Game Geek. It's kind of like Twister, almost more intimate. I think you have to play this with couples or people that you're really close to, because you are putting cards in between your body and someone else's body. So it might be like put your knee against their elbow, and then you're trying to keep a card in between the knee and the elbow. I've only played this once. I'm not sure it's going to stick around. I guess this isn't. There's been a few like that. Assel Schmassel. So I've got a whole line of games here that are from designer Jacques Zemet, who also did Ghost Blitz. They're all the same size box. They're all from Dry Magia Spiele, and I love this line of games. This is probably my least favorite, and it's not bad. There's actually one that I got rid of that I didn't like at all, called Sarge Shubson, which is something coffins. But this one is about wood lice. They've all got really creepy insect artwork. This one was like you had to bang on the table and, I can't remember exactly, but it was just very simplistic. Cockroach Poker, this is probably one of my favorite ones. This is a classic bluffing game I talked about in my top 10 games to play at Christmas. Just great game. I would recommend that to anyone. Simple. Cheating Moth, this is another one of my favorites. This is actually designed by Marcus and Inca Brand's children. And this is a game that encourages you to cheat. You're trying to literally hide cards on your person or drop them below the table whilst everyone else is keeping an eye on you. And if they catch you cheating, then you get punished for that. It works really nicely. Good luck keeping all the cards though. So yeah, I like that one. Kakerlakan Tans, this is Cockroach Dance. I haven't played this one, but my friends did. They seem to like it. I think it involves you doing dance moves, so it sounds kind of up my street. Kakerlakan Super, this is Cockroach Soup. This is he's got a bunch of games like this that make really great drinking games. You've got a deck of cards, you're flipping them into the middle, and you're having to say the right thing, and it can be very hard to get it. And this one's actually got quite a neat theme that kind of makes sense. I've also got Cockroach Salad somewhere, which is basically the same game, and you can mix them together. Dodolido, this is also very similar to that. Hard to describe the differences in a succinct way, but it's hard. This one's really hard. Again, great drinking game, also great with kids. Tarantula Tango, this is another one. Very great drinking game. You're having to make animal noises, but you have to say the right one. And there's so many different rules that you can add to this one to make it harder and harder and harder. Much like if you've ever played classic drinking games like 21. Really, this is probably one of my favorites, but some people hate it because they find it so difficult. Right, on to the next shelf. Double feature. I've covered this in a video. This is a party game where you're having to name film titles. So you've got two cards that come out, and it's like name a film where there's time travel and a vehicle with unexpected features. And so you might say Back to the Future, but maybe there's some other films. And it's the first person to shout out a film that everyone kind of knows that makes sense with those cards. It's not a trivia game, and so, but I like that it's about films, and everyone can do well at this one. So yeah, I like that one. Secret Hitler is a social deduction game where one person is Hitler and there's some fascists and then there's some liberals. And what I like about this one is that it's a bit different to Resistance. You are having to pass these agendas, and the game sometimes will kind of screw you and give you too many. And so sometimes you'll be fascist and you'll be passing a liberal agenda. Sometimes you're liberal and you have to pass a fascist one. And so that creates some mystery, a bit like in Dark Moon. I just like the twist that this game offered. I haven't played it loads. I don't get to play these big group social deduction games that much because I find I really want to play it with people that I like, and a lot of people that I like don't like these types of games. But yeah, with the right people, I've had a lot of fun with that at a stag do. Codenames, this is a classic party game. I've probably played this game more than any other game in my collection, just because it plays so quickly and it's great for almost anyone. And there was a point at my board game group that it was just getting played every night, like all night by multiple groups. You're trying to get people to guess words in the center. You're playing on teams and you have to be very skilled in your giving clues. I talked about Codenames Pictures in my top 10 Christmas gifts. So that's Pictures. It's basically the same game, but with pictures instead. I slightly prefer the words one, I think just because I'm more of a word type guy. But Pictures is fun too. I played the Marvel one or the Disney one. And it wasn't really for me, but I'm not really into Disney. Codenames Duet. This is a two-player version of it, which I've only played a couple of times two-player. Kind of pissed off my girlfriend because I was giving her terrible clues. But we've also played it 2 versus 2 as a team game, which I quite liked. I think ultimately I prefer playing original Codenames, but this brings in loads more word cards. And I think I'll try it a few more times two-player. But for me, Codenames, the fun of it is kind of having that discussion with the people on your team and also giving clues and kind of hearing your teammates talk out loud their reasoning and stuff. And that just isn't as present in Duet. Decrypto, this is a great new party game. I played it for the first time at Essen as a prototype. This one's going to be coming out soon this year. It's another team game. You're also trying to give clues to your teammates, but it's very different to Codenames. You have 4 words that you have for the entire game, very simple words, and then you have to get a number across to your teammates by giving clues to relate to those words, but the other team are going to listen into your clues and they're trying to intercept and try and work out what your code number is. And if they guess it right twice, they've basically got you and they've won the game. Very, very clever and really nice components. And I love this box size. This is one of my favorite shelves. I keep putting these boxes back in wrong because these games just pack so much into this kind of box size. So yeah. Unusual Suspects, another game that I love, another party game, talked about in my top 10 Christmas gifts video. This is a Guess Who, the adult version, where you're being judgmental. You're playing cooperatively. One person is signed a face from sort of 12 faces in the middle of the board. Then they have to answer yes or no questions about them, such as, do they read novels? Or do they spend a lot of time in the bathroom? And what I love about this game is just that discussion with everyone else, where you are having to look at all these random faces and work out in your head, create fictional backstories for them as to whether they would read novels or not, and have little mini arguments about it. Yeah, it's great. Dead Last. This calls itself a social collusion game, but really it's kind of a social deduction game. I like it. It's quite freeform. You're assigned a bunch of cards. You have to kill someone else in the group. Everyone's got a color, and you have to pick someone to kill. But you want to be with the majority. So you're talking to each other. You can say whatever you want. You can whisper to them. You can do sign language. You can flash them the card. But you're trying to be in the big group, but then kill all the same person. But that person, if they find out that they're the one being targeted, they can ambush you. And it's a great discussion game. But it can be a bit of a popularity contest. I imagine some people could get upset playing Dead Last. The Resistance, this is a classic social deduction game, a hidden traitor game. A few people are the spies, everyone else is good guys, and they're trying to catch them. And I really enjoy the basic Resistance, and then also I've got the expansions that allowed you play it like how Avalon plays. I slightly prefer the theme of Resistance. Haven't played this one in a long time. I've had some really bad games of Resistance, Avalon, just with groups that get far too aggressive and pushy, and so I don't play it so much. But again, with the right people, just like Secret Hitler, it's a game that I really love. Word Whimsy, I talked about in my alternatives to Cards Against Humanity. This is a very simple party game where you are asked a question such as good name for a metal band, and then you've got a bunch of word cards that you put in an order, and then you create a good name for a metal band, such as Legendary, Heartbroken, Lobster Woman Warrior. Maybe that's not a good name for a metal band. It's a very straightforward party game. It allows a bit of creativity, but it's a bit more creative than Cards Against Humanity, but doesn't have the expectation of you having to just come up with something on the spot. So I quite like it for that. And but I don't know. I've got so many games like this. I don't know that this one necessarily needs to stick around for me. So I wouldn't necessarily highly recommend it. But it depends on your level of how creative you want to be. So moving up to some slightly bigger games, although this one is still a party game. This is Timeline Challenge. This is a trivia game that takes Timeline. Timeline I talked about in my top 10 games to play at Christmas. The trivia games where you've got things that happen in history and you have to put them in order. It takes that and kind of gives you a game show out of it. It gives you a bunch of different rounds that all work slightly differently. And it's got some pretty bad components. Like it's got this number selector that's made out of cardboard and plastic that just falls apart every time we do it, which is really frustrating. And it's way too big. But the games that it offers are really nice, and so I've kept it for that reason. It brings variety to Timeline, and I really love Timeline. Ristorante Italia. This is a family weight Euro game about running an Italian restaurant. Haven't played it in a long while, but I really like that theme, and it's quite an approachable thing where you're trying to get ingredients and complete recipes and just make your restaurant better. And so it's quite thematic, so that's why I enjoy that one. But I don't know if it'll stay around forever. Article 27. This is I think an under-the-radar negotiation game where you are members of the UN Security Council, I think it is, and you're trying to pass through bills. You've got hidden agendas each round that you want to push through, and there's just so much conversation in this game, and then there's even a gavel, and yeah, I really like this one, and I'm surprised that it doesn't really get any love. Maybe it's the theme, but yeah, I love negotiation games, and this is a nice, it's fairly streamlined, but still with a lot of game. Fog of Love, this is one of my favourite looking boxes. This is a great two-player thematic story-driven game about going through a relationship. You've got hidden goals, traits that you want to complete, and you can kind of win the game on your own, or you can win it with your partner, and it's great for people that like to role play. I talked about that in my top 20 games of last year. Junker, I talk about in my top 10 Christmas gifts. This is my favourite dexterity game by far. It's a great stacking game. It's got 10 different ways to play it. Incredible pieces. I hate the wooden box because I hate wooden boxes, but it's just an amazing game. If you like stacking games and dexterity games, it is quite expensive though. Survive, Escape from Atlantis, probably one of the oldest games that I have. Well, also because it's from the 80s, but the longest game that I've had. It's a great gateway game. It's quite mean, but I think it's kind of cute and simple and short, and so I don't think people can get too upset with it. You are on a island that is sinking into the ocean, and there's all these sharks and whales and things that are trying to attack you, and you're trying to escape in boats. It's got really nice pieces. It's a nice thematic gateway game, family game. But it's been a while since I played it. Warstones is one I got at Essen. I was really pleasantly surprised by this one. It's a flicking game, but with a real amount of thought to it. It comes with this tablecloth that represents a sort of map, and then you've got poker chips that you're flicking, and it's 1 versus 1, sorry. And but it's not so much about your skill at flicking, although that is definitely a big part of it. There's also a lot of tactics to it. It's about having special powers and putting your units into certain places. There's different rules. It's much more like a war game. Really clever and different. The only trouble for me is that the tablecloth is too big for my table, so I'm not going to get to play it very much, but I am keeping it, and that kind of shows you how much I liked it. Right, up here at the top, I'm not going to get these down. You've got Scrabble. Everyone knows Scrabble. I think I've had that since university or longer. I don't really play it anymore because I've got so many other word games. Cluedo, this is the Cluedo I had as a kid. I actually picked it up from my mum's house because I was maybe going to make an Alternatives to Cluedo video, but I don't know if I will. I certainly haven't played it. Risk Legacy. This is the original Legacy game from Rob Daviau. I've played this about 5 times with a group of friends, sort of once every year or something. It's a lot of fun, and I think it does a really nice job of making Risk palatable and interesting, and I love kind of naming places on the board, and I think it's almost more approachable than Pandemic Legacy, which has quite a lot of added rules, but I haven't got far enough through Risk Legacy. And then Panic on Wall Street. This one's on the chopping block for me, potentially. I love the idea of it. It's a big group game, almost a party game, but the rules are fairly complicated, where you're on the stock market. Some people are trading goods, other people are trying to buy them and make profit, and the stocks are going up and down. I found that it's quite hard to negotiate in it, and the kind of margins for negotiating are quite small, but it's chaotic. It's a shouty game. You're all stood around the table. I need to give this one more try, but yeah, I'm not sure. It's definitely for me. So that was my second column of board games in my collection. Join us soon for parts 3 and 4.